Come on, stand up and give him your best praise this morning. Come on. I want to share this with you this morning. I came across this week, and it just reminded me and blessed me. And I just want to share this with you this week. So this is out of Mark 5. And in Mark chapter 4, we learn of Jesus on a boat, and he is talking to a crowd, and they leave and go across the water. And read 4 and 5. It will bless you this week, but I'm going to read 5 to you, all right? It says, they went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, for he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him, and he shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." And then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "My name is Legion." He replied, "For we are many." And he begged Jesus again not to send him out of the area. This man is dealing with spirits in his body. And something so cool, I think, in this story. And if you read 4 and 5, Jesus leaves a crowd that he's preaching to travel across the water to go see about this one man. And this one man, he's broken. He's been abandoned. He's confused. He is tortured. And he's in a place where he's just in a bad spot. And I think what is so cool in this moment is Jesus went to go see about him. I want to tell you this morning. Jesus wants to come see about you today. And he wants to bring you what he brought this man, this peace, this healing. But it took this one act. It took a surrender. It took him going to Jesus and saying, "I just need you. I just want you. I surrender everything to you." And Jesus delivered this man, delivered the spirits from this man. And it's so cool, this man, he wanted to go and follow Jesus. He said, "I want to go with you." And he said, "No." He said, "Go and tell your friends and family what the Lord has done." Today, I believe there is healing. Today, I believe that there is freedom. And I want to give you a moment today just to surrender to him. You know, and everything that we've got going on in our lives, our jobs, school, our families, our households. What are we keeping from God? What are we putting in front of ourselves that we're not fully surrendering to him? What is it in our life that we just need Jesus for? We just need Jesus over this situation. We just need Jesus over our workplace, over our careers, over our family. Are we ready to surrender it all to him today? I just want to open the altars today. I just want to give you a time of just prayer and reflection. And if you need someone to pray with, our teams are ready for you today. But I just want to encourage you today that if you got any ounce of worship in you today, I just want you to point it to Jesus. I just want you to have that breakthrough worship today. Because I know that he came to see about you. Amen? All right, let's worship together today. Let faith arise. In spite of what I see, Lord, I believe. But help my unbelief. I choose to trust you. No matter what I feel, let faith arise. Let faith arise. For my champion's not dead, he is alive. And he already knows my every need. Surely he will come and rescue me. God of miracles, come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible You're the God of miracles, the God of miracles. Let faith arise and see the kingdom come. I lift my eyes, oh, for the battle has been won. My God is faithful, oh, and every single word He said is true. Oh, God of miracles, come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible. You're the God of miracles. Oh, this world is shaking, but you cannot be shaken. My heart is breaking, but I'm not broken yet. Your love is fearless. Help me to be courageous too. Oh, there is nothing impossible. This world is shaking, but you cannot be shaken. My heart is breaking, but I'm not broken yet. Your love is fearless. Help me to be courageous too. Oh, there is nothing impossible for the God of miracles. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible. You're the God of miracles. God of miracles, come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible. You're the God of miracles. Oh, come on, sing it. God of miracles, come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible. You're the God of miracles. You're the God of miracles. Humbly I stand, an offering. With open hands, Lord, I bring everything and nothing less. My best, my own. You deserve my every breath, and my life, and my soul. Oh, I surrender. I surrender all. surrender all. Lord, take control. I trust you. My everything, everything and nothing less. My best, my all. You deserve it. Oh, you deserve my every breath, my life, oh, and my song. I surrender. I surrender all to you, Jesus. I surrender all, oh, all to you, Jesus. I surrender. Trusting you, Jesus. I surrender all. I surrender all to you, Jesus. All to you, Jesus. And I surrender all to you, Jesus. I surrender all. I'm laying down my pride. Oh, I'm laying down my life. Sing it. I surrender all for you, Jesus. I surrender all.
Everything I know comfort is behind me. I've got to let that go. There's freedom in the free fall, and I'm falling into you. God knows where I'm going, so maybe I don't have to. I lay me down at the altar over and over, over and over. From fear to faith I surrender over and over, over
Yeah. Yeah. This entire morning and this entire service to this point, even today, there's a common theme that seems to be taking place. I think it's pretty easy to see. It's called surrender. From the song to the words that Pastor Kyle gave us earlier. And this whole morning, it really wasn't planned that way. But surrender is the word of the day. The thing about surrender, though, is you have to take your hands off of it. That's why some of us, whenever we lift our hands in worship, you lift your hands, you can't carry it anymore. Today's the day, whether you're online or you're here in person, there are people in here carrying things. Today's the day to surrender that. It could be personal. It could be emotional. Whatever kind of burden it is. It could be financial. It could be your health. It could be your marriage. It could be your kids. It could be a lot of things. But I hope and I pray today that through the message and through what the Holy Spirit is doing in this place, that you will not walk out of this place carrying that same burden. That you allow the Father, that you allow Jesus to remove that burden from you. And I promise if you do, when you turn around and you walk out of this place today, you'll be a new creature. You'll be free. And there's nothing more liberating and more powerful than when men and women of God are free. But you can't be free until you first surrender. Amen? Amen. You guys can be seated. Wow. It's been a powerful morning. It's crazy. Well, my name's Darren. I'm one of the pastors here at Connection Point. And on behalf of the entire staff, I'd like to welcome you all here. And maybe if you're online, hey, we love you guys. You're a part of the family here at CPC. We love you. And, man, you really are a part of us. And, man, we hope you reach out. And we know you do 24 hours a day, and that's cool. We hope you do. If you have any needs, if you have any prayer requests, if you have anything, really, if you need resources or whatever it is, simply just drop us a line, give us a comment, send us a message, and we'll get back with you, and we'll pray with you, and we'll believe for you because you are part of this CPC family, and we absolutely adore you guys and so thankful that you're there instead of watching some crazy or something on TikTok. Amen. And maybe you're here and in person, maybe you've been here for a few months, or maybe it's the first time you've been here, or maybe you've been kind of like lurking about on the internet there and watching us and checking us out, but you've never connected with us. And man, we'd like nothing more for you to get connected with us. And it's not so much just so you and I can spam one another. It's so that we can get you going in your walk with the Lord, so we can get you plugged into what the Lord's doing here. And maybe find something that's interesting in your heart and the Lord's putting into your heart. And we really want you to get you plugged in and to get you going in your walk with the Lord. You can do that very simple by pulling out that handy-dandy phone of yours and texting the word guest to 573-340-4037. Or you can scan the QR code on the screen, or if you're here on campus, you can use the message notes right there in your hands. Also, another very important thing that we do here is giving. And man, we don't pry and we don't try to force and talk about money all the time around here. We just want you to partner with us because we believe what God is doing here, and we hope you do as well. And if you do believe what God is doing here, and we'd love for you to join us as we try to impact our region, our community, and this nation and world. And we make that as simple as we can for you as well. You can simply pull out that phone one more time, text them out to 84321, or you can go to yourcpc.church/give. Or if you're here on campus, you can use any of the 4 drop boxes in the back. Or if you'd rather, you can mail it to the address on the screen. Let's pray. Father, we thank you. We thank you for your Spirit. And we thank you, Father, that you're there for us who surrender. And you welcome us with open arms, Father. We thank you. We thank you for this offering. We thank you for this tithe. We ask you to bless it. We ask you to increase it, Father. and that you do that thing that only you can do, and that you multiply our little and you make it do oh so much more than we ever thought or imagined. And we give you thanks for it. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. There is a lot going on around here. There's so much happening. I can't even sit here and begin to tell you. You guys will get bored like you already are with me. But we'll make it really simple. We're going to run it real quick on a video so you can keep up with what's going on around here. Let's watch screen.
Everybody, welcome back. Me and Chris are here again to tell you what's coming up at CPC.
Hey everybody, registration for Kennecott Campout starts today. Kennecott Campout is a 5-day camp experience here on our church grounds. It's going to be in July for kids ages 5 through 12. Your kids will not only have a blast playing games and going through athletic events, but they're going to learn so much about the heart of God. Now, spots are going to fill up fast, so go today to yourcpc.church/events to register.
Starting February 19th, Connection Point Church will begin 21 days of prayer and fasting. A devotional book will also be released to help you along your journey. Check out yourcpc.church/fasting for more info and details.
And as a finale to our 21 days of prayer and fasting, CPC will have a night of worship on Saturday, March the 11th. So come on out, join your CPC family as we together will worship God, we'll sing songs together, pray to Him as one united voice.
And then on March 12th is MAD 2023. What is MAD? It's a once-a-year giving opportunity for all of us at CPC to help make a difference in our community, our region, and the world. This year's goal, we are believing for $500,000. Please be praying for how you can make a difference this year.
There you go. Now you're up to date. Now, CPC family, this morning we have a special guest with us, a great husband, father, pastor of the wonderful Heritage Church up in Lake Zurich, Illinois. He is a leadership coach and just an encourager in the Word of God. And I'm glad here at CPC we can call him our friend. So I want you to get up right now on your feet, put your hands together, and welcome to the stage Pastor Skyler Goodman.
Hey, good morning, good morning. Please, now you can sit down, please. Quickly, I don't know a single pastor in the world that enjoys that moment right there. But thank you, you're so kind. Man, I love being a part of what God is doing here at CPC, love being the chance to come here, and I love this church, and so thanks for having me today, and excited about what God is doing. So thankful for your pastor, your staff, your team, all of you guys. You're the most welcoming church I think I've ever been to. I feel like I want to take a bunch of people home and be like, can you show everyone at my church what love looks like, and kindness, and joy? No. And so I love it. Thanks for being such a great church. I was actually able to speak here a couple of months ago. It was actually anniversary weekend for my wife and I kind of duped her into going to Jackson, Missouri for our anniversary. And I tried to get her to come back for Valentine's weekend, there, but she said no. She's at home, but she's holding down the fort. And but we loved last time we were here, so she made sure to say, make sure you tell everybody that I really loved it last time, and I didn't come back this time, not because of them. Okay, so I think a lot of you have probably been worried about that, and so I wanted to at least say what my wife wanted you to say. I tried to explain to her, I said, babe, I don't think they even remember who we are. But she's like, just say it. So, babe, if you're watching, I love you, and I do what you tell me all the time. So we love it. Hey, how many of you guys created some New Year's resolutions this year? There's a couple. I love that most of us have just given up on life. We're like, nope. Yeah, why bother, right? You know what's crazy? So a lot of us, we start the year with some idea of, hey, this year's going to be a little bit better. I got some things I want to fix, right? Maybe it's a resolution, maybe it's a goal, whatever we want to call it. But, a lot of times we try to think the beginning of the year, things are going to be different. And I decided this year I'm going to set some resolutions for myself. I came up with one. My New Year's resolution was I want to help all my other friends gain 20 pounds this year so that I look skinnier. It's just easier. And honestly, I'm still killing it. I haven't fallen off the wagon on that. I've got a bunch of chubby little friends now. We feel so much better. right? It's a lot easier helping others come down to my level than raising it up, right? But you know what's funny is over the last 20 years or so, sociologists and psychologists, they've dove into this whole idea of New Year's resolutions. And that most people, right, whether they state it or not, they see the turning of the calendar as kind of a fresh start. Like it's like this magic pill that whatever happened last year, it'll all be better on January 1st, right? And they think this is going to change. What's fascinating though is over the last 20 years, they've done lots and lots of research and they've determined that by and large, almost everybody, regardless of what status you're at, what socioeconomic status you're at, who you are, it doesn't really matter. If you were to reduce down, the vast majority of New Year's resolutions are always the same. It's always around this whole idea that everyone wants to make their life better. Maybe it's a weight loss goal, maybe it's a finance goal, maybe it's something with their kids, maybe it's travel more, work less, whatever it may be, but it gets reduced down to this whole idea that I'm taking an honest look at where I'm at, and I'm charting a course for where I'd like life to be. And by and large, almost every single one of our resolutions tend to fall into those categories. But they also started to research all of the things that people do to make those things happen. And here's what they discovered. 80% of people who make a resolution or a goal in January have broken it by February. 8 out of 10 people that have a goal and say, here's where I'm at, but by the end of the year, this is where I want to be. Within 1 month, we go, nah, I'm good. I'm good, right? Something happens along the way. We tend to kind of get off track with our habit, our choices, and all of a sudden where we wanted to be, we go, I don't think I'm going to get there. Maybe next year. Maybe I'll try it next January. Next year is going to be the greatest year ever. You ever been there before? Right? Whether it's weight loss goals, like I always joke, like I start diets on a Monday. I don't know about anybody else, but every Friday when I'm like, man, I've really made some poor decisions this week. But Monday, no, it's going to work, right? We treat January the same way. And so they began to do some research trying to figure out, why is this the case? Why do so many people take an idea saying, here's where I'm at in life, and yet here's where I want to be, but over time, usually pretty quickly, they find themselves drifting and getting off course. And so they did all this research, they asked people, they followed up year after year. For 20 years, they've done research. And here's what they said they determined. That most of our resolutions are based on external things without internal resolve. Right? In other words, we want everything on the surface to look better. We want more time, we want more money, we want more health, we have all of these external things we want, but what we lack is this internal resolve. We haven't done a whole lot of work to change the things that matter most. Right? We don't really change or want to change for very long our choices or our character or our heart. Right? And so we're on a mission to change that this year here at CPC. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about discipleship. And what does it mean to actually anchor to some things so that you can keep yourself from no longer drifting? Right? Because every one of us, if you're like me, we're probably the same. We chart some courses. We have a better idea of where we want to be in life. We have a better idea of where we want our marriage to be, our friendships to be, even our faith. Yet somewhere over time, we choose to get back into the same habits, the same cycles, and all of a sudden, we intended to be in a different place. And we have this moment, that honest moment of clarity where we survey our life, survey our season, we survey our friendships or our marriage. And we go, man, how did I get here? This wasn't where I wanted to be, but somewhere along the line, I began to drift. Right? And this is really important because we can learn about all kinds of discipleship tools to know more about God. But if we don't have an honest, accurate prescription for us about where we are, we're never going to get to where God wanted us to be. So starting here, how did I get here is a pretty important question, right? You can't chart a course on where to go if you don't know where you are. My kids, they love like Six Flags, and my youngest kid, she loves going to the shopping mall so she can look around, and she always has this idea, and every time we go, we stop to try to figure out where her store is. You ever go into like a amusement park or a shopping mall and you go to find the directory to figure out where you're supposed to go, right? It always fascinates me. There's always like that little circle that says you are here, which is a bit creepy, right? Like, how do they know where I'm at? Like, there's people, it's a dumb joke. You'll get it in the car, though, later. Yeah. On an unrelated note, Pastor Chris will be back next week. So if you don't like this, just hang in there. We got one more. He'll be back. Right? In order to understand where we want to go, we got to be pretty honest about where we are, because here's what I've noticed in my life, and maybe you're the same. We have a tendency to oversell our reality. Right? We have this image, this perspective about who we think we are and how life is going, and we begin to oversell that reality. And we do that a lot when it comes to our faith. Right? We have a tendency to think we're more spiritually mature than we are actually living out in practical application, right? We think we're generous people, but yet we don't trust God with our resources. We don't tithe. Right? We think we know what prayer is supposed to be like, but the reality is, if we're being pretty honest, we tend to pray when something goes wrong or when we need something from God to fill a void, but we don't abide in him very often, right? We tend to oversell our reality. And so it's really, really important, because if you're anything like me, my guess is there are going to be moments in your life, moments in your season, where you're just going to sit there and you're going to have that moment of clarity and go, man, how did I get here? And what you will find is that there have been a series of choices and habits and cycles that you have made, little by little, that cause you to drift. And all of a sudden, you begin to find yourself in a place that you didn't think you were going to be. Asking that question, how did I get here? And so what we're doing over these last few weeks is saying, let's set anchor on some things in our life that will keep us from drifting. Right? Let's anchor to the rock solid Jesus, the one who never changes with the ups and downs of life. Let's anchor to that, and that will help us to no longer drift. And that's what we've been talking through. And so before we get too far down in this series, here's the thing I wanted to kind of talk about today. I wanted to talk to you about the one thing in my life that I have discovered that contributes to more drift in my life than anything else. The one thing that I have discovered that contributes to more poor decisions in my life than anything else. The one thing that I have discovered that contributes to more course corrections than anything else in my life. And that is my heart. And if you're anything like me, my hope, my prayer for you today is that you would be encouraged to see things from a different perspective, that you would begin to be honest about where you are so that you can anchor to the things that never move and become the person who God called and created you to be. Would you pray with me for the moment? God, thanks for today. Thanks that we can be together today. Thanks for just your presence and the ability that we can be honest, to open up your word and let it encourage our hearts today. For that, we give you thanks. In Jesus' name, amen. You ever heard the phrase, you do you? Right? You know, we say that a lot in our culture. It becomes kind of a buzzword. It's really just the ability to give permission for people to do whatever they want to do, right? And so you do you on the surface actually sounds like a pretty good thing, right? Like if what we were really trying to do was say, I want to be rooted in the identity of Jesus, right? For my life. I want to live in the confidence of who God created me to be, who God wired me to be according to his truth, right? Not my truth, but according to his truth, right? If that's what we meant when we say you do you, that's actually a pretty good thing. To say, hey, you be who God called you to be, who God created you to be. You live out his truth, not yours, right? But the truth is we live in a culture where you do you has started to mean something different. Now, what you do you means in our culture is whatever you think is right is right. Whatever you think is truth is truth. Whatever you think is good is good. Whatever you think is evil is evil. Whatever you think is best is best. You do you. Right? And on the surface, that kind of sounds empowering, doesn't it? Right? That sounds like there's a lot of freedom in those things. You are your own source of truth. Right? And it doesn't take long to see that we live in a culture where self is God. Right now, that's not anything new. That's been the way from the very beginning of humanity in the Garden of Eden. And it doesn't take very long for you to look at your life, for me to look at my life, for us to look at the culture around us and determine that you do you is starting to become the spiritual authority of most people's lives. Right, but here's the thing, we're church people, right? And so we know that you do you, and me trying to say, hey, this is just who I am, we know that sounds a little bit selfish. So you know what we do in the church instead? You know what we say? Follow your heart. Just follow your heart. Right? Doesn't that sound so much nicer? Like, we want that to be on coffee cups, right? We want it to be on Christian t-shirt, like, just follow your heart. Right? And so what begins to happen is we start to think that this is our truth. So what happens is you're 50 years old and you're known for someone who's brash, and you're like, well, hey, listen, man, I'm just being me. I just tell it like it is. And everyone's like, no, you're just a jerk, right? And you're like, no, I'm just being me. Like, here's the thing. Here's the problem with following your heart. Jeremiah chapter 17 says, the heart is the most deceitful above all things. Right? When you trust your heart, when you follow your heart, it is going to take you down paths and places that you were never designed or intended to go. But it sounds good, doesn't it? It sounds empowering. It sounds like there's freedom in those things. You do you. No, you follow your heart. And here's the thing, listen. If I'm being transparent with you, right? And this is, to be totally honest, this is kind of a little bit of a vulnerable message. And what I love about it is because I'm a guest speaker, I get to leave in an hour, and Pastor Chris can clean it up next week. So this is kind of like therapy. I can just kind of say, here's what I'm dealing with, and you're all like, man, thank God he's not our pastor. That guy's a mess. Right? Now, here's the thing, though. Maybe you and I have some more similarities than we think. Right? But so here it is. If I'm just being really transparent with you, it has been my experience, right? May not be yours, but I've found this to be mine. That following my heart, right, being led by my emotions, being led by my desires, being led by my appetites, my feelings, has caused me to drift in more places than anything else in my life. Whenever I start to do me, it feels like I'm heading to the right place for a little bit. But it always takes me to the same destination. It always does that. Following my heart has caused me to drift more than anything else in my life. If you're anything like me, here's what I need us to process. Somewhere along the line of life, we started to determine that our happiness, our fulfillment was about feeling good. It's about getting what we want, about living for ourselves. It's not about living for something greater than ourselves. It's not about pursuing things that are truly good, but somewhere along the line, we kind of drifted. We got off course. We started looking at every choice, every opportunity, every season, every right and every wrong as how does this affect me? And it's a whole lot easier to follow my heart than it is to follow the way of Jesus. But see, here's the deal, and this is what we have to be honest about, right? In order for us to figure out who God called and created us to be, to learn about discipleship and to grow and to become those people, we just got to be honest about where we're at. And here's the deal. Our strongest desires are not actually our deepest desires. And we just have to understand what that means. This is the reason why we spend most of our life chasing external things. Right? We're convinced that if I could just do this, if I could just get this, if I could only look this way, if she could only find this stuff, if he would only love me, if I could get all these external things, it would fix this emptiness inside my heart. But the truth is, our strongest desires, what we think are those external things, are not actually our deepest desires. Most of the things that we want on the surface doesn't really satisfy what we are really searching for in our soul. See, here's the one thing that you and I have in common. We don't have to look the same. We don't have to live in the same place. We don't have to be the same age. We don't need to be the same race. But here's what we all have in common. All of us have been created with this deep hunger to connect with the one who made us. That is hardwired into the DNA of our souls. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, it doesn't matter where you live or how you grew up. There is this deeper desire that is hardwired into our souls. And here's what we're going to learn. That deeper desire, when we fulfill it with the right thing, it actually keeps us anchored from drift. It begins to satisfy our soul. It kind of overflows into our life and allows us to walk in true freedom. And make no mistake, what you chase is this idea of freedom. That you get to live life on your terms, that what you do matters, and you get to kind of chase the things that you want to chase. Freedom fires us up. It's great, right? You were created to experience freedom. The Apostle Paul said it this way. He was talking to a group of Christians just like us, and he was telling them this in Galatians chapter 5. He said, you, my brothers and my sisters, you were called to be free. Right? Doesn't that sound good? You're like, oh, I like it. You do you. Right? You are called to be free. But look what he says next. But do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command. Love your neighbor as yourself. Right? And then he goes on, he says, let me show you how to live this out. And so a couple verses later, this is what he says. Here's what I want to tell you. You want to live in freedom? Right? You want to live a life that doesn't keep drifting with the changing circumstances? You want to find that fulfillment in your heart and your soul? It's not found when you chase external surface stuff. Because what you really are craving is more than just surface level stuff. Your strongest desires aren't your deepest desires. So here's what he says. So here's how you get it. You want to walk in freedom, you want to find it, here's how it is. He says, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other. He's like, there is a tug of war going on in your heart between your flesh and between your spirit. He says, walk according to the Spirit, for those are opposed to each other to keep you from doing the things that you want to do. Here's what that literally means. He says, there's this war that's going on between your flesh and between your spirit. And they're at opposition to each other. And if you don't win that war, it is going to keep you from who you were called and created to be. He says it's as simple as that. You're never going to end up where you were designed to be if you're not honest about where you are. If you're not honest about, hey, there is this battle that's going on, and man, I don't feel like I'm winning it very often. And so he says, this is how you do it. And so he reminds them a few verses later, he's like, hey, let me just tell you, like, if you're a follower of Christ, let me just tell you the kind of life and the victory that you get to live in as a follower of Christ. In verse 24, he says, those who belong to Christ Jesus, said they have crucified the flesh and its passions and its desires. So he says, if we live by the Spirit, then let us also walk. Let us keep in step with the Spirit. Now, I got to tell you, I've been processing this for the last few months. Heading into January 1st, man, I took an honest inventory of my life, and I looked at different seasons. I looked at different relationships. I looked at different circumstances. And I began to think, man, where do I want to go? And I don't know about you, but those how did I get here moments tend to happen on the weirdest times. Sometimes it's just I'm driving along and I'm sitting at a stoplight, and you think about life, you think about your season, you think about your kids, whatever it may be. It's like there's just this weird potluck of thoughts going in my head. And then I'm getting really honest. I mean, how did I get here? There's times where I'm laying in bed, about to fall asleep. And my wife, she's sleeping next to me, and maybe I'm having this moment where I look back over the last few weeks, the last few months. And even in my relationship with my wife, I'm sitting there in those weird moments before I go to sleep, go, man, how did I get here? How did we get here? And it has been eating me up as I began to go through these questions and taking an honest inventory. And so I started reading through the book of Galatians right here. And I'm telling you, this question has been in my heart and my mind every day for the last 30 days. And it's this question I want to give you. Who or what is God in my life? Is it flesh or is it spirit? Right? Am I letting my appetites, my instant gratification, my feelings, my impulses be the driver of my life and my choices? Or am I staying in step with the Spirit? Right? And here's the thing. If I'm being totally transparent with you, right? And again, I get it. I'm a mess. Maybe you're all like, this is not me at all. I live a great, perfect life. Like me and God, we're Siamese twins, right? And you can't relate to any of this, and that's okay. But maybe there's some of this you go, man, I understand where you're at with this. Here's what I've started to discover. When I allow my flesh to lead me, right? When I do me, it almost always causes me to drift into things that matter most. And not only do I drift in what matters most, I deny my heart the truest, deepest desires for which I was created, right? And when that happens, when I start to drift, when I feel empty, when I start to look at things through that perspective, I'm just telling you, it always leads me to the wrong places, right? It always leads me to this place where it may feel like I have some freedom for a little while, right? It may feel good for a bit, but man, there isn't too much time that goes by where all of a sudden I'm going, man, I don't feel that's who God wants me to be, and there's a disconnect, there's an emptiness in my heart. Whenever I allow my flesh to lead me, when I follow my heart, it leads me to the same place over time. The only difference is that the roads looked a little different to get there, but I always end up in that place of feeling empty. Well, you know what else begins to happen? When I find myself following my heart, it's real easy for me to start blaming others for what I'm experiencing. Right? And so what begins to happen is I start to think, well, man, these people have failed me and these people have let me down. And here's what begins to happen. When I follow my heart, I find myself being really honest in those moments of being honest. And I start to realize that I will allow a lot of other people's decisions, shortcomings, failures to be the justification for my own choices. You ever been there? Just go, yeah, well, I did this because they said that. Well, yeah, I didn't want to do this stuff, man, but you know what, man? I'm so sick and tired of being the only one who's carrying the weight around here. I'm tired of being the only one who's seen this way, and I will allow my justification to be driven by other people's choice. Every time I find myself following my heart, man, it leads me to those places, and without fail, I find myself in these moments where I go, man, how did I get here? And if I start to retrace my steps, almost 100% of the time, I can trace it back to moments where I began following my heart. Where I started to go, you know what? I'm going to do me. I'm going to follow those things in my life. And I'm telling you, that question's been eating me up for the last month and a half or so. And so I thought, how great would it be for that question to eat you up as well? So let me just ask you, who's leading you? Flesh or spirit? Be honest, right? You can fool me, you can fool your spouse, you can fool your church, but you stand before God naked, transparent. He sees it all, knows it all, and loves you still. So the only one we hurt when we're not honest about where we are is us. And eventually that hurts those around us. So let me just ask you, be totally transparent. If you were to sit and have a how did I get here moment, and you were to have to take a survey, a season, an inventory of your life, who's leading you? Not just in general, in day. When you woke up today, who's leading, flesh or spirit? When you go home, when you wake up tomorrow, who leads you, flesh or spirit? And I think all of us are sitting there in the same. My guess is we're going, I want to be better. I want to have a better life. I want a better marriage. I want to be a better dad. I want to be a better spouse. I want that. And there are times, I'm not even kidding, I start my day, and that is the deepest desire of my heart. And I genuinely mean it. Like, I want that to be the case, right? And I'll sit before I get out of bed. I pray the same prayer every morning. I'm like, God, I surrender my whole life to you. I give you my mind, my attitudes, my words, everything. I say, God, lead me by the Spirit today. And then I step on a Lego when I get out of bed, and it's gone. Patience is gone. I'm like, I'm running through the house, right? I want so badly to be led by the Spirit, right? But there's this thing that begins to take place and go through it, right? And so that's an honest question, right? Who's leading your life, flesh or the Spirit? Right? Which one currently leads you? Because as much as there is a God who wants nothing more than for you to live in freedom, there is also an enemy of your soul that wants nothing more than to keep you stuck. And he knows that if he can keep you and me chasing surface level appetites, external things without much internal resolve, he will keep you disconnected and empty and missing who God called and created you to be. Right? So this is an honest question that we need to figure out, because you can learn how to pray. You can get tools on how to read the Bible. You can even get a whole website designed on how to help you pray and fast. But if you don't win the battle of flesh and spirit, none of that stuff matters. This is where we set anchor first. This is where you have got to be rooted, where you have to go, I'm going to settle this in my heart once and for all. This is what's going to happen. All right, so here's what I want us to see. I want to invite you into something that has been freeing for me. It's an honest tool for me to understand my how did I get here moments. Maybe you can kind of relate to some of this, but it helps me to see this from a new perspective, and it's this. If you're taking notes, you can kind of fill in the blanks. Here's what it is, really simple. Every choice, every pursuit, every pathway you've been trying to find is really a deeper desire to connect and to discover God. Every choice that you have ever made, every pursuit that you've taken on, every pathway you have walked down is really this deeper desire to connect and discover God. Even when those choices and those pursuits and those pathways seem to be in direct opposition to God, you were still searching for something in your soul. See, you and I, we were created this way, with this deep desire to connect with God. And this is what our soul craves. And every choice we've ever made, good, bad, the stuff that brought God smiles and the stuff that brings God tears, every one of those choices, whether we knew it or not, was fueled by this deeper desire to connect with something greater than ourselves, to try to figure that out and discover it. And here's what so many of us have discovered throughout the years. No matter what I tried to chase to satisfy my soul, the only thing that filled me up was Jesus. My office back home, I have one of these preschool toys. I don't know if you remember seeing these. We'll show you a picture of them real quick. You remember these toys when you grew up? It's called the Shape-O ball, right? If you've never had the pleasure of playing with a Shape-O ball, it's pretty straightforward. You try to find one of the pieces, and it will only fit in the corresponding space on the ball. Right? And so you take the heart or the star and you try to find the star. You take the circle, right? You get it, right? The reason I'm saying is toddler toys can be very complex sometimes, right? And so this is what it is. My kids had this, they hated it. We've always sit and go, all right, well, hey, we're going to learn how to put our shapes in. And you as a parent think that you're doing something helpful, right? You're teaching them about shapes. You're teaching them about coordination. But really, you're just fueling a rage that is deep within their soul. Every one of my kids, we have this ball and they're trying to go through it and they try as hard as they want. They're trying to take the circle shape and they're trying to cram it into the triangle shape and it's not working. And you're like, no, it's got to match. Look for where's the circle, right? And you just see it, right? And just red. Their eyes, like blood starts draining from their tears, right? And they're just trying to go through fine. Every time my kids threw a fit. Just throw it as much as they can. And I keep this little shape-up ball in my office because I think it's a really good reminder of how most of us tend to live our life. Like we look to all of these other things, our job, our resources, our retirement, our kids, whether or not they're in third grade and are they going to play professionally. And so we've really reordered our whole life around the thought that our fourth grader is going to pay for all of us one day in life, right? We make those decisions so early. We go, I'm going to do it. My job, this is what's going to help me. This is what's going to make me filled up. This is what's going to bring fulfillment and joy in my heart and my life, right? If I could just get her to like me. If I could just get him to want to marry me, if I just had more kids, if I had less kids, like whatever it be, my life would feel complete. It would feel filled up. And you know what we've done? We go down all of these choices, all of these pursuits, all of these pathways, thinking that if I could just put this in this God-shaped hole in my heart, everything will be better. And so we followed our heart, only to find out it still left me empty. It didn't fill it up. Because hardwired within every single one of you, me, there is this God-sized hole. And the only thing that will ever make you feel complete and full is when you put that right piece in your heart. You can try all the other stuff. And isn't that so much of how our life works? We get so frustrated. We have tried to cram the wrong pieces in the wrong spaces of our heart for a long time. And yet it leads us to feeling empty and disconnected, like we've missed it. And so you know what we do? We wait till January 1st and go, it'll be better this year though. Only to fall back in the same cycles, same habits, same mistakes. See, every choice you have ever made, every pursuit you've ever tried to tackle, every pathway you've walked down, is you trying to put something else in the God-shaped hole in your heart. Right? And here's the genius of God. When you start to realize that, when you take your heart and you say, God, I've tried all this other stuff. Man, I've done me for a long time and it's not working. And you take that God-sized hole and you put it in that God space in your heart, all those other things start to find the right place as well. Because now I don't need my job to make me feel valued. Now I don't need a relationship to tell me I'm worth something. God already filled that up. All those other things just begin to find its place. See, that's how you find freedom. It's not in doing life on your terms. It's not holding others hostage to your past pain and your hurt. Freedom is found when you allow God to do what only He can do, and that is to be that custom piece that has been missing in your heart. And you may go, well, here's the thing. I have Jesus in my heart. Right? I've put that piece in my heart, but I still have a lot of pain and hurt. My marriage is falling apart. Are you telling me I just need to find a new marriage and put that piece in? No. Well, I've got a lot of betrayal. I've got a lot of pain. Here's what I'm telling you. Whatever it is that your heart is longing for, God has a custom piece for. And He wants for nothing more than to heal your heart. Because He created it. And He knows that when He can heal your heart and you find wholeness, well, freedom follows. Real joy, real purpose, real life. And I'm just telling you what I'm learning here. And if this clicks with you in any way, then maybe this will help you too. If you're wanting to guard against the drift that happens in life, happens in our marriages, happens in our friendships, that drift that happens even in our sense of purpose, that drift that happens in our faith, this is where we've got to drop anchor first. We've got to have this moment where we go, God, I can't do this on my own. God, I can't fix my life. I can't continue to navigate life on my terms and hope to survive in the long run. Following my heart, following my ways, man, it isn't working. So God, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to surrender my whole life. You're the only piece that's going to fill me up. That's where discipleship begins. That's where you set anchor and go through all the ups and downs, through all the goofiness, through all the crazy battles that I lose between my flesh and my spirit. The one thing I've set anchor on is that my life is surrendered to Jesus. That's where I'm setting down. That's going to never change. That's never going to move. I'm done doing it that way. And Paul says the way you do that is you crucify the flesh and you walk in the Spirit. And you go, well, how do I do that? How does one crucify the flesh? How do I walk in the Spirit? Well, here's the best answer that I can give you. You starve one and you feed the other. That's how you crucify the flesh and you begin to walk in the Spirit. You starve one and you feed the other, right? That's not easy, but it is simple. That's what God says we need to do. We crucify the flesh. We starve it out. Whenever my heart wants to do my things, when I want to follow my word and my ways, and I want my emotions to be the only things that matter, I want my way of life and my perspective, I want people to follow my agenda and my preferences, you know what I have to do? I go, God, I'm going to crucify that. That means I'm taking my personality, I'm taking my preferences, I'm taking my politics, I'm taking everything that I hold near and I hold dear to my heart, and I am laying it at the feet of Jesus. God, you get it all. So now Jesus is going to influence my personality, my preferences, my politics, not the other way around. I'm not going to pull Jesus out of the glove box whenever I need him to support my agenda, right? I'm just laying it all out and go, Jesus, all this stuff, I lay it down. I take all the stuff I want. I take all the things I hope for. I take my dreams, my ambitions, my children, my future, their future. God, I can't control any of it. I lay it at your feet. I'm surrendering it all. And everything my flesh wants to fight for, God, I give it to you. And then I start to feed the Spirit. I start spending time in God's presence, just like we're doing right now with God's people. I start spending time reading God's word, getting to know the God of the Bible. I start spending time praying and connecting with God. I start to feed the Spirit. And I begin to stay in step with the Spirit. And now eventually what begins to happen is the Spirit starts to overcome the flesh. You see, the way of culture tells me you do you. I follow your heart. But the way of Jesus tells me live by the Spirit. Follow the Spirit. See, you and I were created with this deep desire to connect with God and to live a life that was filled with purpose. Right? It's the life that you and I were created to experience. It's the life that you're longing for. It's what all of your choices have been seeking. And the Apostle Paul says, here's the kind of life that you were created for. He says, when you walk by the Spirit, this is what God gives you in return. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control, right? And he says, against such things there is no law. That means he's like, there is no limit. You can have as much of this as you want. It's like a Holy Spirit smorgasbord. He's like, you want more love? Go on up. You can take 10 trips up, right? It's the old country buffet of heaven. This is what you get. You want more love? You want more joy? You want more peace? Right? You need more patience. You want more selfishness or self-control. It's all yours. You get as much of this as you want. This is the kind of life that you were to have. That's the life that leads to freedom. That's the life that all of a sudden moves past external surface things and starts to get towards internal issues in your heart. And he goes, you can have all of that when you allow yourself to feed the Spirit. And so here's what I begin thinking to myself. If this was true for me, if I was filled with these things, would I have made the same resolutions this year? Probably not. Because my resolutions are typically surface level stuff, but it never gets to internal things in my heart. You see, our strongest desires are not actually our deepest desires. Right? So crucifying our flesh and living in step with the Spirit, here's the problem though. That flies in the face of a you do you kind of culture. Because culture tells me the opposite. It tells me that I deserve your love. It tells me that I should go after the things that I want. It tells me that my way is the only way that really matters. It enables me to be selfish. In fact, it cheers it on. It tells me to go after those things, that's where freedom is found. It is a counterfeit benefit of the Spirit. And so when we get into this is what it does. Following your heart, it never leads you to the way of Jesus. Right? And you go, man, well, I don't know about that. I mean, come on. Don't you think that's a little much? Are you saying that every part of my life is supposed to be surrendered to Jesus? Listen to me. Jesus didn't come just to save you. He came to repair you. Right? When you accept Christ, that's the starting point, not the finish line. And yeah, here's the news. Jesus wants it all. He doesn't want to just come in and redo a room, put some paint on the wall. He wants to demo the house. And he wants to rebuild it into something better. Something more than you and I could ever have built on our own. But he wants it all. You go, how do I know that? Here's how I know. Jesus said this. Luke chapter 9, verse 23. He says, if anyone wants to follow after me, if anyone wants to call themselves a follower, you want to be my disciple? You want to be a follower of Christ? He goes, let me just tell you what's going to cost you. He says he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Take up his cross daily and follow me. Right? Because here's what Jesus knew. The battle between your flesh and your spirit, it never stops. In Matthew chapter 4, Jesus had his kind of ministry coming out party. He was just baptized by John the Baptist. John the Baptist said, hey, this is who Jesus is. He is the Messiah. He's the one going to rescue God's people, forgive them of all their sins. And he dunks Jesus, and all of a sudden this loud, audible voice from heaven, it's God saying, that's my son, and a dove flies down, right? That's a big deal. Like, I don't know if that happened last week at the baptism services, but that's what happened for Jesus, right? It's this big deal. And the Bible says that Jesus disconnected from people, and he went and he found connection with God, and he began to set aside some time to fast and to pray. For 40 days, he began fasting and began praying. And here's the thing. The Bible says that when Jesus did this, Satan himself comes and he begins to tempt Jesus. Every day coming to Jesus. 40 days, 40 nights, every day coming to Jesus with a new temptation, new challenge. And he tried to entice the flesh. Right? He started off by just going, man, Jesus, you hungry? Like, I don't know about you. I've tried to fast. I'm not good at it, obviously. I've tried to fast a little bit. And after about 30 minutes, man, I started getting a headache. Like, I'm yelling at my kids and everything. I think Jesus is like, here you go, buddy. Here's a Twinkie. You need this. Like, you're missing the point, right? I'm terrible at it. Jesus was fasting. No food, no water, all this stuff. And the enemy comes up and he says, hey, listen. You got to be hungry. Turn those rocks into bread. Right, what's he doing? He appeals to the flesh. 40 days, he does this over and over again. But then in Matthew 4, it says this little phrase, that then Jesus, each time, he rebuked him with the word of God. And it says that the enemy left him, and he was going to come back and tempt him at an opportune time. You wonder, well, what's an opportune time? You know what I think it is? I think it was the next day. I think the very next day, Jesus is sitting there and the enemy comes tempting him. Because the battle for your flesh and your spirit is an everyday fight. There is this tug of war that is going on in our soul. This is why Jesus was telling us, hey, listen, here's the gift. You're never going to have a one day where you beat temptation and it's gone. Right? Every day you're going to have a battle between your flesh and your spirit. So you need to crucify that flesh. You need to starve it. You need to feed the spirit. Every day you need to take up the cross and you need to follow me. You need to deny yourself. You need to crucify your flesh and you need to follow after me. This is a daily relationship routine and ritual that we get to have. Every day we get to wake up and say, God, would you be with me? Would you teach me your ways? Would you guide me on your path today? When my flesh wants to lead me down the wrong path, when myself wants to take over and start driving my life however I see fit, I need you to lead me today, Jesus, because I can't do this on my own. You see, Jesus overcame temptation because he was anchored to the Spirit, right? And so here's the thing. You and I, if we got any chance at this in life, I think we have to do the same thing. We have to stay anchored to the Spirit. To be saying, Jesus, I can't do this on my own. I am done following my heart. You do you. Maybe the worst advice you could ever give or have ever received. Jesus, I can't do this on my own. I need you. So what are you going to feed? Your spirit or your flesh? What are you going to feed? What are you going to let lead your life? Your flesh or your spirit? See, I think one of the greatest tools that the enemy uses to keep people from living out who God called and created them to be is that he convinces us to kind of straddle the fence. Where on the one side of our life, we've got the kingdom of God surrendered fully to that. On the other side of the fence, we got our choices, our life, our way. And the enemy knows that as long as I can keep you straddling that fence, I'm going to keep you from who God called and created you to be. Have you ever felt that way in your own faith? Right? You ever caught yourself drifting and you go, man, how did I get here? And as you retrace some of the steps and the choices and the seasons, you go, man, if I'm being really honest with myself, I've been kind of living with one foot in and one foot out for quite a while. Can I just let you in on a little secret? The enemy of your soul owns the fence. He wants you sitting on that fence as long as he can. Because every day you sit on that fence is one less day that you can connect fully with God, your creator, and live the life of purpose that you were designed to live. He wants you sitting on that fence as long as you'll take it. That's the reason why throughout scripture so many times you see Jesus and other followers of God use language like this. Choose this day whom you will serve. You're going to follow the flesh, you're going to follow the spirit, because you straddle the fence long enough, like my mama said, you'll always hit a post. You'll have a moment where pain shows up, where choices drifted and you got off course. So who's going to lead you? Flesh or spirit? Which side of the fence are you going to choose? See, we got to set anchor right here first. God, I can't do this on my own. I'm done doing life on my terms. I'm done losing the war between flesh and spirit. I need that peace that is only you to fill this God-shaped hole in my heart. Can I do something? Can I just pray with you before we end our time today? I'm just going to ask, wherever you're at, if you're joining us online, if you're here, would you just bow your head and close your eyes with me for just a minute? Now, maybe you're sitting here going, I've never actually prayed that prayer in my life before, where I've surrendered my life to Jesus. I've tried a lot of other pieces, but man, I see where that path goes, and I don't want to do that anymore. If you've never prayed that prayer to say, Jesus, would you come into my heart? Would you fill that emptiness, that God-shaped hole in my heart? I want to give you an opportunity to do that right now. If you've prayed that prayer before and you've started to realize, though, that, man, you've been drifting off course for a while and it's time to course correct, and you want to pray that prayer with me to say, Jesus, I need a fresh start. I want to rededicate my heart to you. Would you come in? Would you fill my heart? If that's you this morning, can I just pray with you? Wherever you're at, you can repeat this with me, or you can just kind of say it in your own words, but it's a simple, honest prayer from our hearts where we say, Jesus, man, would you forgive me of my sins? I have tried to put a lot of different pieces to fill up my heart, and every one is leaving me empty. Everyone is leading me to messes and down paths that I never wanted to go. So Jesus, would you forgive me of my sins? And would you come into my heart? Would you be that peace that fills up my soul? And be my Lord and be my Savior. And I will give you my whole heart. Lord, everything in my life I lay at your feet. Be my Lord and be my Savior. In Jesus' name. If you've prayed a prayer like that before, and you would say, hey, I'm a follower of Jesus, here's my prayer for you. I pray that every single moment of every single day, you know that the Spirit of the living God is in you. That he is going to help you and guide you with every choice, with every pursuit, with every pathway. And that every moment of your day is an opportunity to invite Jesus in and say, Jesus, help me to win this war between my flesh and my spirit. And through your help, God, through the power of the Holy Spirit, I am going to starve the flesh and feed the spirit in Jesus' name. God, may we live in that victory, as your scriptures tells us, that is what freedom looks like, that we get to live in freedom when we walk in step with the Spirit. Make that true of us today in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. CPC, I love you. Thank you for being with us today, and thanks for the opportunity to chase Jesus together.
Amen. Amen. If you said either of those prayers with Pastor Skyler, there are folks out in the lobby with red bags that look just like this. There's resources in them. We want them to get them to you. And if you're online, the same thing. Just put a comment down in the comment section, and we'll make sure you get these same resources. Or if you just said that other prayer with him, man, there's people out there. They want to take you over to the Care Connection area, and they will pray for you. Anything you need, just reach out. Okay. Hey, you guys have a great weekend, and go and live a surrendered life. Amen.